Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech and iOS 26.0.1 released to the public a few days ago, along with iOS 18.7.1. Over a week or so ago at this point, Apple also released iOS 26.1 Beta 1. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26.0.1 is out. What's new video? We'll go over the latest Apple news, there's some new features to talk about as well, and we'll talk about the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page. At the time of this video, there's over 25,000 votes and 282 comments, and I've gone over all of them to determine the experience on every version. So be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, it seems that the iPhone 17 models are selling better than expected according to an analyst at Morgan Stanley. And based on extended shipping estimates and the Apple supply chain, it seems that the iPhone 17, iPhone 17 Pro, and Pro Max are selling well and may need an increase in production to meet demand. However, the iPhone Air demand seems to be a bit weaker, so that's not really surprising as it's sort of a specialized iPhone or something a little bit different and has some compromises, but it looks like demand overall is quite strong. But let me know which one you chose in the comments below, or if you're not upgrading at all. Now this week, Apple discontinued support for the iPhone 11 Pro Max and Apple Watch Series 3. They now have it on their vintage Apple Watch and iPhone list here, so you can see it on their website, where as we scroll down, you'll see the iPhone 11 Pro Max has been added. So this is about obtaining service on older devices. It's odd that it's vintage, but still supported with iOS 26, but that's something that Apple updated recently, and maybe they'll add more to it very soon. I'll link this in the description below, though, if you want to check it out for yourself, or if you need service on maybe a vintage device as well. Now, the UK government is at it once again, pushing Apple to try and give them the encryption keys to iCloud to access user data. This is something Apple's gone back and forth about and says can delay features if they have to sort of allow this, but Apple typically does not create backdoors into their software to allow governments to use it. So this is something that is going to probably go back and forth for a while and unfortunately leads to features not being available in specific areas and more. But let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Now, if you have a newer iPhone that supports Apple's satellite services and different connectivity through T-Mobile and satellite using Starlink, you can now use different apps with that as well if maybe you're in an area with no signal. This is something through T-Mobile satellite connectivity that will now work with Google Maps, AllTrails, AccuWeather, CalTop, X, WhatsApp, OnX, and T-Life. So if maybe you're in the wilderness, you're in an area you don't have cell signal or Wi-Fi connectivity, you'll be able to access things such as WhatsApp and communicate with those that can get you some help, or maybe just communicate in general. So it's great to see that service active. If you have T-Mobile, you can use it, but it doesn't typically appear unless you're in an area with no service. Now, Apple Intelligence is still not working for some on new iPhone 17 models, and Apple is aware of the issue, but there's no fix in sight just yet. They're still working on it. It looks like they could fix it either with an update or a server-side fix, but we don't know which yet. And you'll see Aaron P613 on X posted it's been 2 weeks with iPhone 17 Pro, and I still can't use Apple Intelligence. So it's just not working. It's downloading in the background and not working for some. So I thankfully haven't experienced that issue, but many people have, and hopefully they fix it very soon. This week, Apple acknowledged that there's an issue with iMessage for some not activating on iOS 26, and they've actually posted a support article helping those that are having the issue. You'll see here it says iMessages fail to send with a not delivered alert and can't be received. So it's giving examples of what could happen and how you can actually fix it by removing or deleting an inactive SIM and activating iMessage again. So it's going through steps. I'll link this in the description below if you want to try it out, but basically you go into the Settings app, go into Cellular, and if there are two SIMs displayed that have the same phone number, find the one that's no longer active, and if the inactive SIM is a physical SIM, remove the physical SIM. If the inactive SIM is an eSIM, tap Delete eSIM to remove the inactive SIM. Again, you only want to do this with inactive SIM cards, then that should fix the issue by reactivating iMessage. So if you're having that issue, hopefully that will help you out. As far as new features this week, well, the first one has to do with one I mentioned last week that was coming soon that's now available. If we go into Apple Wallet, and if we go to add a card under driver's license and ID, you'll see that North Dakota is now available. So this is something that was rumored last week to be launching soon and is now available if you live in North Dakota. This is controlled by local government and states, so they have to work with Apple in order to implement that, and that's why we only have certain states with the option, and we could see more soon, as well as countries, but it just depends on the state and local government to update this, and you don't have to use it, it's just available as an option. Within iOS 26.1, there's a new feature or gesture that has to do with notes. Apple added some new gestures in music I mentioned in previous videos, but if we go into maybe a note here, we'll select the text. Typically, you can get into the advanced menu settings by tapping the arrow. There's now a gesture to do the exact same thing. So tap, swipe, and it opens up right away. So it makes it easier just to get into this if you're maybe a Notes power user and you use it all the time. There's also a new feature that was found with AirPods. So maybe you have AirPods Pro 3 and they're giving you a new message that you need to clean them. This is actually something that's showing up now. So you'll see this was sent in by a viewer. Hearing protection may not be working as expected. Clean both AirPods to improve audio performance. You'll see here that sometimes you can't do a hearing test for the same reason. However, I've heard from others that have actually cleaned their AirPods and still get the message. So this could be a bug that it's overly sensitive, or maybe there's just more microphones and ports that you need to clean out for things to work properly. But let me know if you've seen this. I haven't seen it myself, but I'd love to hear from you if maybe you're experiencing this, you've cleaned them, and it's not working properly. Another update has to do with the camera. Within the camera, you'll see it now says HEIF, or the common standard for compressed photos. So this is a format standard that we've had for a while. Prior to this, it said HEIC. So that's something they had before. Now it's changed it to HEIF to comply with the standard naming convention. Also, if you have an Apple Watch that supports the new hypertension or high blood pressure notification option, that's now approved in Canada and should be showing up. So if we go into the Health app, we'll go into Heart, and if we scroll down, you'll see notifications for hypertension. Make sure to enable these if you'd like to use them. If you use your Apple Watch to sleep, it can take up to about 14 or 15 days for it to monitor this and let you know. So just keep that in mind, but it can take 30 days as it monitors and measures it, and it should be available in Canada. Also, Apple announced that sleep apnea detection is now active in South Korea. They posted it on their website. You can see it here that it's now available. So that's available elsewhere, and it's great to see more and more features added throughout. Also, one feature that seems to be fixed in iOS 18.7.1 has to do with silencing the phone. If we go to the lock screen, so press and hold, and maybe we'll customize. We'll go back to the lock screen, and we have our options here for camera and flashlight or whatever we'd like. We now have the option to silence again. Some people saw this disappear where we couldn't have silent mode on the lock screen with the widgets here. That's now available again for your controls. So thankfully that's back. I've heard from quite a few of you that it disappeared. There's two apps worth mentioning that were updated or released this week, and the first one is Adobe Premiere Video Editor. It's available free to try out, and it's available on your iPhone to edit video if you prefer it over Final Cut apps, LumaFusion, or other options as well with DaVinci Resolve. In addition to this, there was also an update to WhatsApp this week that now allows it to use live photos. Live photos was introduced some time ago and sort of shows motion throughout your photos, and now that will work on WhatsApp when you send that to someone else. Now, with the new iPhone 17 Pro and iPhone 17 Pro Max phones, many seem concerned about overall durability. However, in my tests, it's held up fairly well with it dropping on rocks or different things. I actually had that happen on my phone during the review as I was reviewing it, and it fell off a tripod. So typically I don't drop my phones, but it nicked the display. It didn't crack it, but it's not impervious to things such as the anodization coming off that you can see here. I experienced the exact same thing with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, where after using it for a year, it chipped off some of the finish. The same is true around the outside edge. You can see that finishes just wear off of metal, but that's not uncommon and can happen with anodization as well, but generally it's fairly tough. But if you drop it on things such as rocks or concrete, you're going to experience some scratches no matter what. Now, a viewer actually sent in his phone that he dropped today, and unfortunately it cracked it, so I wanted to share that with you. So Braden sent this in. You'll see here on the back, around the camera plateau, we have a scratch. The same is true around the camera, but it held up well. It didn't crack the lenses at least, but the back, it actually cracked the glass and shattered it. Now, he already has an appointment to have this replaced, but it's a bit unfortunate. Maybe they'll replace the overall frame, but I doubt it. But with AppleCare, they'll just take care of it. But this was accidentally dropped on concrete. So that just shows, of course, glass breaks and the metal holds up okay, but it's definitely going to show more signs than maybe titanium. So depending on what you care about there, I would go with the maybe silver colored phone if you drop your phone a lot, or of course just use a case. Now, as far as releases, well, we expect an Apple event in October. Typically every year we have an event in September, and then usually at least some releases in October. So we may not have a full-blown event, but we could have some releases like I mentioned earlier with iPads, Macs, and maybe a few other things. There's some rumored Apple TVs coming out, supposedly, and some updates there. So hopefully we'll see something like that fairly soon. We also recently got a Safari technology preview, like we do every week or two it seems, and this version is 2.29. It's available for macOS Tahoe and macOS Sequoia, so if you want to test the latest versions, you can do that now. Also, of course, we're waiting for iOS 26.1 Beta 2. Since we didn't have anything this week, as I predicted, next week seems likely around Monday or Tuesday on the 6th or 7th of October. So that seems most likely. Now, it's possible we could have an iOS 26.0.2 if Apple can't fix the Apple Intelligence issue. However, they may just wait and hopefully be able to fix that server side. But either way, I would expect a Beta 2 sometime this week, along with public Beta 2 as well. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about is my AirPods Pro experience, and this goes across all AirPods Pro 2, these are AirPods Pro 3, and what I wanted to talk about is their overall stability when connected to Bluetooth lately has been fairly terrible. In fact, I was listening to music while I was writing notes for this video, and it would continually stutter or crackle whenever a notification came in. So you're listening to music, a notification pops up on your phone or on your Mac, and all of a sudden it would just crackle or sort of stutter through the music, and it makes for a terrible listening experience. I've noticed this more and more with the latest updates and wondered if you're experiencing the same thing. So typically I was using them yesterday, mowing the lawn, listening to music, and they worked perfectly with just an iPhone there, and I was on Do Not Disturb. But with those notifications coming in, I have that stutter or crackle. When it comes to the overall experience of iOS 18.7.1, it seems to have high stability and smoothness. Not a single person I found was reporting issues in the YouTube community poll with iOS 18.7.1. If you want the most stable version, you're on an older phone and you haven't updated to iOS 26 yet and you don't care about the new features, this seems like a good alternative. I do wish Apple would allow people to downgrade that really want the most stability on older devices that came with older versions. But either way, super smooth, super stable, and a great experience for most. When it comes to iOS 26.0.1, well, I reviewed the iPhone Air this week and I was using it full time, and overall it's pretty good. There's definitely some issues here and there. Most people are reporting it's generally smooth for most, even on older phones with iPhone 11, 14 Plus, 16 Plus, and others. CarPlay still seems to be an issue for some, unfortunately. I haven't had really a single issue whatsoever, and I find it connects faster. That could be just the newer iPhones, but either way, I haven't had any issues. That's in a couple different cars, couple different brands, and no problems whatsoever, but many people are having issues. But there is an odd issue that people are reporting now with the keyboard. Keyboard suggestions and autocorrect don't seem to be very good. So within the keyboard, some people are seeing overlaps of just the overall UI. That could be a pain, but other people are just saying when they're using multiple languages, sometimes it doesn't pick up the language, doesn't predict text properly, gives nonsense words, or doesn't change the language at all. So many people are reporting this. My wife is reporting that sometimes autocorrect is terrible. She even asked me, and she doesn't typically ask about those issues. So there's definitely some problems there. There's also some lag from time to time. I've seen it in the iPhone Air. Could be due to the battery calibration with adaptive battery, maybe slowing it down when it needs to save battery. And I've seen that on this device over and over. So that could be the operating system just trying to slow things down, but then also connectivity seems to be an issue for some. Not just the Bluetooth issues I mentioned, but other issues with sometimes Wi-Fi and cellular. More so with the iPhone Air, I find that I have worse cellular, but with the iPhone Pro or iPhone 17 Pro models, it seemed to be great. Now, iOS 26.0.1 seems to have the most issues on the newer iPhone 16 Pro, 16 Pro Max, 17 Pro, and 17 Pro Max. They show the most extreme variances, with most people being likely to experience the best performance, but the worst battery and heating issues. So this makes me think that maybe it's still processing in the background. I know my iPhone Air is saying that, where it says your iPhone has been used more than usual since upgrading iOS, which may affect battery life. So there could be things going on in the background there, or it could be something else entirely. But on older models, it seems to be doing great, running great, very smooth and bug-free, even on the iPhone 11 models. Now with iOS 26.1 betas, well, there's still some issues we've talked about before with some overlap in the UI throughout. Some report that the update is better than iOS 26, but others report it as worse. Some people have been having lockups and crashes, and also the UI animation has glitches throughout. There's also bad Bluetooth connectivity like I mentioned before. Screen recording lag, though, seems to be fixed, and it seems to be more responsive and lag-free in general. So people do have lockups from time to time, but when you're using it in general, it seems to be nice and smooth, including ProMotion and everything else. So it seems like it fixed iMessage freezing, fixed Wi-Fi issues, battery is better for many, and some visual glitches seem to be better as well. But sometimes there's some odd issues with different third-party apps such as YouTube. Now, when it comes to performance, in general, most versions are good. The beta seems to be decent, as well as iOS 26.0.1, other than what I mentioned already with occasional lag. So performance when you're just using it generally, and even Geekbench seems to be pretty good. We'll check that in a bit, but just scrolling, things like ProMotion seem to be nice and smooth on newer devices. When it comes to heat and thermals, though, well, that seems to be pretty good for me, but I did have some times when the iPhone Air was heating up quite a bit. But let's go ahead and run the benchmarks on all the devices here and see what we get, and we'll check thermals throughout. Benchmarks are about halfway complete. Let's go ahead and flip the phones over, see how they're doing with heat. So with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, you can see how it dissipates heat pretty efficiently. We're at about 35 degrees Celsius is the highest I've seen. And then on the iPhone Air, it's going to concentrate heat at the top around 40.4 degrees or 40.5 degrees Celsius. And on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, again, it's concentrating heat over the processor here at about 37 degrees Celsius. So again, the iPhone 17 Pro Max definitely comes out on top when dissipating that heat. The iPhone Air definitely gets quite warm around the camera plateau. Benchmarks completed, and from left to right, we have iOS 18.7.1 on the 16 Pro Max. The iPhone Air is running iOS 26.0.1, and the 17 Pro Max is on iOS 26.1 Beta 1. This shows the overall scores, but on the 17 Pro Max, we have 3,784 for single-core, 9,605 for multi-core. Pretty good overall, not the very best we've seen online, but some of the best scores I've seen, and overall well within the margin of error and what we would expect as far as performance. So if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.1 betas or any of the other versions we're running here, well, I would probably stick with iOS 26.0.1 if you want a stable update. Give it a few more days for everything to complete, and battery should improve. If you want the very best experience and you're on iOS 18, stick with iOS 18.7.1, but iOS 26 betas seem to be pretty good, but again, you're testing a beta and can have some issues, so I typically recommend against that until maybe we're at the RC. Now, when it comes to overall battery life, iOS 18.7.1 has great battery for most. I've seen no complaints, and it's a great option, as I mentioned before. iOS 26.0.1 varies depending on your device, of course. I've been using the iPhone Air for the past week, as I mentioned in the review, but if we take a look, you'll see my battery health. I'm at 13 cycles with 100% battery capacity, and you can see more details here with Coconut Battery. I've had such a high cycle count as I have to charge it almost 2 times a day. So if we go into my battery usage here, you'll see yesterday I used 97% of the battery, had 4 hours and 59 minutes of screen active time, 3 hours and 46 minutes of screen idle time, and you can see all of the times I had to charge it. The day before, 4.5 hours, again, 123% battery usage where I had to charge it multiple times. So today so far it's at 68%, and I've used it 2 hours and 39 minutes. So it's getting between 4 to 5 hours of screen on time for me. So overall, it's okay, about what I was getting with the 16 Pro Max on early iOS 16 betas. When it comes to iOS 26.1 Beta 1, well, I haven't used it for a little while since I've been testing this phone, but overall on the 17 Pro Max, it was quite good. You'll see the battery health here, 8 cycles with 100% capacity, and battery usage was pretty decent when I used it last Friday, 3 hours and 39 minutes at 46%. I was getting through the day no problem, and it seems like it's much better for most people there, but we do have a huge battery in that. Now with iOS 26.0.1, 55% so far have said that battery is good or better than iOS 26. So that's pretty good news. iOS 26.1 Beta 1, only 44% are saying it's better this time around. That was much higher last week, around 90%. So after the next week that it's gone on, it seems like it's gotten worse. So I would stick with 26.0.1, give it a few days, and hopefully it improves. When it comes to the overall experience and what you had to say, let's take a look at some of your comments. Will Belial 3775 said, iPhone 16 Pro iOS 26.0.1. Battery has slightly improved, everything seems to be running smooth. I did have an odd camera glitch where the camera would not stay on the 5x lens and kept on shifting between lenses even though the object was plenty far away. That's the first time that's happened, and it happened after updating to 26.0.1. So hopefully it was just a one-off thing. Everything looks really good and no stutters or anything odd outside of the camera issue. Hayden Meady said, I'm running 26.0.1 on my 14 Pro Max, and it's been much smoother than iOS 26 release. And my battery is getting me through the whole day now. Tim Chisonis said, I have a 17 Pro Max running 26.1 Beta 1 and found that the battery was great. Then today I realized that I had hotspot sharing in all this time. I turned that off and expect that it is going to be even better. Vale Ranger said, the biggest issue I had since many updates ago and Apple seems not to care about because it still persists and nobody makes a video about it, is that of the keyboard. Since I got to type switching among 3 different languages, the predictive text suggestions give such nonsense words or don't change at all to the language being used at the moment. The worst occurs when switching to English back again and predictive words come in with weird accent marks and other symbols not even related to the language previously used. Typing has become a nightmare for me. 50 Finn said, iOS 26 on the 17 Pro Max. My phone never heats up, battery lasts me the entire day, and I find iOS 26 to be absolutely beautiful. Elton3470 said, I'm on iOS 26.1 public beta and really happy. 34% battery drain with 6 hours of screen on time while on Wi-Fi. Never had this kind of battery strength when I was on iOS 26. When it comes to overall storage, let's go ahead and take a look at that. We'll go to General, and then we'll go to iPhone storage. We'll check it on 26.1 Beta 1 and 26.0.1. We'll give it a second to load, and you'll see iOS 26.1 Beta 1 is taking up 20.9 gigabytes on the 17 Pro Max, and iOS 26.01 is taking up 19.89 gigabytes on the iPhone Air. So the difference seems to be with iOS in general. Shouldn't be a huge update, but you'll see in general they're about 1 gigabyte apart, so not too big of a difference. So this can vary greatly depending on device, what you have on your device, of course, as well as Apple Intelligence and more. iOS 18.7.1 is the stable choice. It's currently the gold standard for battery life and stability, and should be now that it's a year-old operating system with just some patches. iOS 26.0.1 was the necessary patch for iOS 26 like we get every year. It's a substantial fix for many users, offering improved stability and performance, but it remains a hit-or-miss update that continues to cause severe battery drain for some and overheating for others. However, a significant amount of users actually say it's quite good and much better than iOS 26. iOS 26.1 is the ongoing experiment. iOS 26.1 Beta 1 seems to continue the trend of improved performance, but it also introduces new bugs such as some minor visual issues and critical issues Apple will fix later on. But the battery experience remains highly inconsistent, but is not untypical for something such as a beta. So that's everything with iOS 26.0.1, iOS 18.7.1, and iOS 26.1 Beta 1. Expect Beta 2 in the coming week here. Of course, we should expect some new feature changes, some updates, and some more improvements as well. Let me know your experience in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.